Hi, how we doing today? Happy Monday. Woo! I hope we're all feeling well. My kids are all still asleep. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Alright, January 19th. Just to let you know, we're going to read Genesis 39:1 through 41:16. Genesis 39:1 through 41:16. Matthew 12:46. Matthew 12:46 through 13:23. Psalm 17:1 through 15. And Proverbs 3:33 through 35. Alright. So I wanted to do a little clarification. Yesterday we had some confusion, or just couldn't quite understand some things. So, now we were talking about the story of Joseph and his horrible brothers. So earlier we read stories about wonderful brothers, seeking revenge for their sister. Now we have Joseph, who is pretty much the spoiled brother, the favored brother of Jacob's. He has a fancy cloak that I guess some people think was like really pretty and colored. And, that's the one that the brothers took and put blood on. So, there was markers that stood out to all the other kids that, hey, this is my favorite kid. I guess he was also a tattletale, so that didn't make things easier. So that's a little more context about why the brothers were so evil. I was confused. There was a line in here where in Matthew talking about the Pharisees were demanding, was it Matthew? No. In Genesis, the Pharisees yeah, it was Matthew, sorry. Alright, so the Pharisees were saying that they wanted to be, they wanted to see more miracles, right? Like, okay, Jesus, if you're so good, show me this, show me that. And Jesus is pretty much saying, you're not worthy. I've shown you a lot of things already. I've shown you my ways. You still deny me. You still call me evil. You're not worthy. You Pharisees saw God's power, and they've already refused it, right? I was also unclear about the line where it's talking about Jesus is saying that the unclean spirit can leave a person, and it goes in arid places, only to return to the person with 7 more demons following. And I didn't understand what is going on. Why is this happening? And I guess Jesus is using this to illustrate the dangers of rejecting him. So, maybe like me, you go around being like, look, I'm a good person. I put my shopping cart away. If I find somebody dropped a wallet, I contact them and I give it back to them. I do things that, for the most, I'm intentionally thinking about trying to do things all for the greater good, or the benefit of the doubt, and blah, blah, blah. But it says, clearing yourself of sin, but staying empty of the Lord, it makes the person worse than they were before. So that's why when the demon comes back, he comes back with 7. Pretty much saying that it's a warning of incomplete spiritual change. The house represents a person, and the external change, if it's insufficient, external change is insufficient if you if you can change your external situation, but you're not fixing the inside, right? And I think that's something, maybe it's here in the Bible, if you can interpret that and spend some time and figure that out. But we find that in many different places too, right? That's a universal message. You know, you can change the surface all you want, but until you change the inside, that's what truly matters. So, just wanted to clarify and speak of that, because I left our reading yesterday just really not understanding. So, I feel better about it now. I hope you do too. So, let's get into it. Let's do a little prayer first. Lord, thank you for another day. May I grow to learn and understand your word better. May I grow to live in accordance to your word. And may I find the kingdom of heaven someday. And hey, I've got the same prayer for anyone who's watching and anyone who's curious about your word. So thank you for this glorious day. Let's get our studies going. Amen. Okay. Genesis 39:1. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered, and he lived in the house of the Egyptian master. How about that? You get sold into slavery by your brothers, and you are with the Lord, and he makes you prosperous as a slave, right? When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So he left in Joseph's care everything he had. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. How lovely. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her, or even be with her. One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. Oh boy. I don't know. This kind of reminds me of like a pool boy going to do his job, and there's that lady in her little negligee waiting for him to entertain her. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." Oh boy, here we go with some lying drama again. She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him the story. "That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." When my master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me?" He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Wow. Wow, isn't that nice? Must be nice to be good at everything you do. Until you get persecuted, right? And lied about. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Listen, people, this is like the 400th time dreams have been mentioned in the Bible, and we're on day 20. Pay attention to your dreams. Okay, when Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why are your faces so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is not one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph in his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." "This is what that means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are the 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison, for I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread." How do you get 3 baskets on your head? On the top basket, oh, they're going upwards. On the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. "This is what it means," Joseph said. "The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days of Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh." Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. How do you forget that? Somebody needs to take their ginkgo biloba. How do you forget that? Nobody forgets Jesus. Oh, I guess it's not Jesus, it's Jacob. I'm mixing stories, but still. How do you forget that? When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. Ooh, now Pharaoh's dreaming. He was standing by the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the river bank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning his mind was troubled, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream, and things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was hanged." So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before the Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it is said of you that when you hear of a dream, you can interpret it." "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh. "But God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." So Joseph's being called before the Pharaoh after being kicked out of pretty much Pharaoh's house with the Pharaoh councilman guy. Now all these couple years have passed. Now he's being called back into the house as a dream interpreter. And pay attention to your dreams. You never know what they could mean. I've been fascinated with dreams ever since I was a kid. I met someone, probably when I was like 8 or 9, that had a dream interpretation book, and I was like a dream dictionary, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a thing. And ever since, I've been fascinated with them. I have to say the dream dictionaries that I've used, a lot of them end up having negative connotations, but you can go online now and you can look at different websites, and but a lot of times, that's how I used to do it, but a lot of times now I just meditate about it, because when you're sleeping, all kinds of stuff is going on, but when you're awake and you're thinking about it, and if you're, in your 40s like me, you've lived enough life that you can kind of gauge things, That's why I wonder why it's so crazy that they want an interpreter, because if you're a pharaoh by this point in your life, you've been ruling, you've been making judgment calls, you've been looking at bigger pictures. I don't know why he didn't feel qualified to interpret his own dream, but I get it, He's got to make big decisions, and he's got to understand things, and he probably wants clarification, right? Anyways, pay attention to your dreams, okay? And if you want to share your dreams ever, hey, tell me about them. I love hearing dreams. I love trying to figure those little puzzles out. So, but if not, I know some dreams are too personal. Okay, we're going to do Matthew 12:46. Matthew 12:46. While Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you." That was a little redundant. He replied to him, "Who is my mother, and who are my brothers?" Pointing to his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers, for whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." Okay, knowing a little bit about what we researched in yesterday's Matthew verses, I think this part here is saying, yes, we're all born to have a mother and maybe siblings, but he's saying, for here, whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. So we're all connected, right? And as long as you are doing the will of God, then we are brothers and sisters and we're all related. So, whatever you do to others, it's happening to your own family, right? Or you. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it, while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered, because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still, other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. He who has ears, let him hear. So, last night, interesting, I literally was sitting out here on my table, scattered with all the seeds that I was planning on starting this winter, spring, and I think that his parable about seeds right now is screaming at me to listen. Right? So, there's many ways you can plant your seeds, and if you want it to be successful, you can't just toss them down for the birds to pick up. You can't just plant your seed in something basic and shallow and expect the sun to help it grow rather than scorch it. Things aren't going to grow very well, on rocks. But when you plant in good soil where it produced a crop, it will be 160 or 30 times what was sown. He who has ears, let him hear. I think that's self-explanatory, right? You got to put yourself in a good environment if you want to thrive. The disciples came to him and asked, why do you speak to the people in parables? He replied, the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. So his reply is, the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom in heaven has been given to you, but not to them. Okay, so not everybody can understand the knowledge. They need parables to make sense of it, is what he's saying. Whoever has will be given more, and he will have... Whoever has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. This is why I speak in parables. No, that's confusing. Okay. The disciples came to him and asked, why do you speak to the people in parables? And he replies, pretty much in a parable, right? He replied, the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. So he's saying, you understand it, but the people don't. So that's why I give it in parables. Whoever has will be given more. Okay, so whoever has understand the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, even what he has will be taken from him. This is why I speak to them in parables. So he's speaking them to parables to pretty much dumb it down so that they get the information and can skirt their way in, right? As opposed to never getting the information at all because they don't understand it, like most of the people today. Okay. Though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand. In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. So this, makes sense. This is like the Pharisees, the see, the hear, they're witnessing things, and yet they are still denying what they see. And I mean, do we know anybody in our lives like that? Do we know anybody who, regardless of what other people around them experience, they deny miracles, they deny God, they deny something deeper? I was that person. I have to say, my husband's been that person for a long time, but I'm seeing little hints of changes. I'm seeing that he's not so closed off to the things that I talk about anymore. So I'm seeing miracles over here. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For I tell you the truth, many prophets and righteous men longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. This makes me feel like an ascension thing. It makes me feel like you're not ready to hear things until you're ready to hear them, right? You're not ready to accept things. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it, right? Some people just refuse to cross over and see things from a different perspective. It took me a long time to get to this point, but it started by being open, not just one day saying, I believe in God. I mean, that did happen, but there was a progression to get to that point. It really had to get in, and then I had to, I swear it was ancient aliens, but for everybody else it's different. But once you start hearing things, like for me it was ancient aliens, hearing things, comparing some science, some background, some geology, things that backed up the book. After all these years of just saying that it's not true, and there's so many things wrong with it, but I never took the time to actually read the entire book. And so I think it really, hopefully, if you know somebody in your life that is just totally rejecting all this, just pray you can get an in, get their curiosity piqued, right? Listen to what the parable of the sower means. When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. Right? Oh, so that's like anyone who, they read the Bible and they just take what they want from it, right? And then they try to go apply that to their life, and then something bad happens, and then all of a sudden they're just like, screw the Bible, screw it, nothing, God doesn't exist, right? It's because they didn't put their whole heart into it, and they only took what they thought they needed out of it. They cherry-picked it, so to speak. This is the seed sown along the path, the one who received the seed that fell on rocky places in the man who hears the word, and at once receives it with joy. But since he has no root, he lasts only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, he quickly falls away. The one who received the seed that fell among the thorns is the man who hears the word. But the worries of his life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke it, making it unfruitful. But the one who received the seed that fell on good soil is the man who hears the word and understands it. He produces a crop, yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. So it's all about the base. It's all about the base, the foundation. When I think about my children, I think about how they're growing up, and yes, I've created them a foundation, a base, but they're going to go out into the world, and they're going to need to create their own foundation and their own base. And as parents, it's our job to provide them the right soil, right? And they're eventually going to go out, and they might reject our soil completely and go find some other soil. But, taking it back to yourself, building a strong foundation for yourself is good for your kids to see that, right? So that they end up doing the same, hopefully, down the road. But, what do you do when your soil is already, not prime? We don't got no fox farm over here. We're just mixing up the soil we got in the earth and whatever we can add to it. But I think the most important thing is to build your soil, read your Bible, right? Get closer to God, try and understand it. If you don't understand it, keep researching it. So, I think this is a good one. I think I was more open to understanding. My brain was more accessible to this knowledge today. I think, so Patricia yesterday sent me some information that I was reflecting with you about yesterday. She got this really cool visual Bible book, and she was able to screenshot some things for me that helped me understand a little bit better. My mom came in. She explained some things too, talking about Tamar, the lady that tricked Jacob into having a baby with her because his first two sons were so evil that they had to be killed. And my mom tried to explain the context was so that this poor woman, everybody's supposed to be procreating and reproducing, and this woman had her chance, and then the husband was killed, and then she had a chance again, and that husband still wasn't good enough, and then she was just told to go sit on a shelf pretty much with her dad. And my mom's like, she wasn't having it, so she came up with this plot and it was pretty genius, but one thing that caught me after I talked to her about it, or read what she wrote about it, why is Jacob mingling with a prostitute? All right. Have a great Monday. Happy Martin Luther King Day, Jr. And see you tomorrow. Same time, same place.